So I'm going to talk a minute about call-offs because I'm a little peeved this morning. I've got a customer that called off for service for this week, which ultimately is not the end of the world, but it's the principle of the matter that bothers me. Because last year, they did this several times where they called and would say, well, hey, my husband mowed the grass yesterday, so you can skip us this week. Or we did a mulch project for them, and I explained to them the terms. The payment is due the same day the work is done. And 3 weeks after the fact, she still hadn't paid the bill because she forgot, despite the fact she was getting her invoices. And even then, she broke it down into payments, and the agreement wasn't that I was going to finance it for her at 0% APR. Now listen, there's nothing wrong with doing those things if you communicate those things ahead of time. But when a client, consistently undermines you, we many years ago, I got really good at nipping this in the bud, where I would have a husband and a wife team up, and they would text me individually for their same lawn. And a customer, the husband would say, do X, Y, and Z, but then the wife would say, I never told you to do this or whatever. And after we would do the work, and then we get the invoice, so we had to go back and forth. So I just cut all that out. And I said, there's one person I'm going to talk to. This is the way it is. So in this particular case, this gal calls and says, hey, can you take on our lawn for the summer? Again, I'm like, yeah, we can. She goes, don't start this week, start next week. This was a couple weeks ago. I said, okay, fine, I'll pin it in and you'll have the spot. Then this week has already started, and she messages this morning, says, well, my husband cut the grass yesterday. Well, first of all, if that's the case, you should have messaged me yesterday. But I mean, it doesn't really matter anyway, because it's the precedent that's happening. And when you have a guaranteed overhead, and when you can only mow X amount of lawns, it makes it more difficult now, because now we got to fill that spot with somebody else, which means I have to go back and I have to work on the map again. It's not the end of the world. There are bigger problems to have to deal with, but how beneficial would it be for somebody to have a job at a factory or a law office or whatever it is, and they would just randomly call you off and you don't get paid for it, but yet you set the time to work for them because that's what they asked you to do. See, it takes two to make a commitment, both sides. If I'm going to be 100% in for a client, they have to be 100% in for me. And the way I explain it is it's real simple. I don't do call-offs. I mean, if you want to mow the grass, or if the grass doesn't need to be cut, that's perfectly fine, but we're going to be paid for it if you want a spot. We sell the spot on the route for service. And if you can't do that, that's 100% okay. I always tell people up front, my commitment or my service is specifically for those who want to know that they don't have to worry about, having the grass cut. Could that mean that maybe a couple times in the summer we don't have to cut the grass? Well, it could mean that we don't have to cut the grass, but I turn down other business for that spot. And just the same as the internet service, you might not use your internet service at home, but if you're signed up for service, you have to pay the bill. You might have a lease at an apartment complex, and if you don't sleep in the apartment one night or 1 month, you still have to pay rent. It's really that simple. It's about commitments and it's about relationships. And in this particular case, I was so open with the lady and very good at communicating. We did absolutely outstanding service, but they weren't able to make the commitment in return. So I just laid the gauntlet down and said, no, we're not going to play that game. I'm done. I don't need it. You can find someone that does it for pizza money on the side, and maybe they'll do good work, and maybe they'll be insured, and maybe they won't show up, but you're going to get in return what you're willing to give to somebody. Peace.